House hacking has got a dirty little secret and nobody's talking about it. And we hear about house hacking a lot on podcasts like the Bigger Pockets podcast, on vlogs. You'll see things written about it online. And it's a great way for people who don't know what that is. It's a great way to get into buying real estate, and have someone help you, your tenants in this case, offset the cost of ownership, offset the cost of maintenance. Because what you'll be doing is you'd be buying a multifamily unit that could be a duplex, could be a triplex, it could be a fourplex or larger. You'd move into one of those units and then you'd rent the other ones out. And from the proceeds of that rent, you'd be able to pay for your mortgage and all the maintenance costs and all the other things that are associated with homeownership. It's a great way to start getting into the business of investment property ownership. But the challenge, I'd say, with some of this information is that it's very broad stroked. They don't really talk about specific areas. And I work in an area where that can be a little bit more of a complicated thing to deal with. I do definitely think house hacking is an amazing way to get into the business of investment property ownership. But I do think you need to do your homework. You need to understand what you're getting into based on where you live or where you want to house hack. What's going on, everybody? My name is Christopher Barrow. I am the host of this podcast called The Landlord Code. I'm also the founder of Foundation Homes Property Management in Marin County and a partner with Gold Street Properties, a property management company located in Sonoma, California. And currently I have a duplex on the market for sale in San Rafael, California. The thing about this duplex is that both units are occupied. We're selling it totally occupied, kind of turnkey for a 1031 investor. It's got all the maintenance records. It's ready to go. And we are getting a lot of interest really from buyers who want to move in and house hack. They want to live in one of the units, rent the other one out, and kind of have that other unit again pay for the cost of ownership and house hack. It's not a bad idea, but the reality of what these buyers are walking into, if they were to walk into something like this, is that one of the units is occupied by an older tenant. They may have a disability and they're also on a housing voucher. Now, this does complicate the idea of house hacking if that tenant wanted to live in that specific unit. However, based on the location of this unit in this building, under California law AB 1482. And if you don't know what that is statewide rent control, statewide eviction protection that California dropped in 2020 for areas that weren't initially impacted or weren't previously impacted by rent control and rent caps, Marin County being one of those areas. They are now under that guise. They're no longer exempt if you have a multi-unit building that's 15 years old or older, or you have two units on one parcel that's 15 years old or older. Now you are subject to rent control and rent caps. That's like the Cliff Notes version of what AB 1482 is. Now, as it pertains to this specific building, it really, that's what you have to deal with. There's no other outlying issues around that. So the fact that the tenant may be older or protected class or have disabilities or whatever might be going on in this unit or units in this area, the requirement is that the new owner who wants to move into this property would have to pay the tenant relocation costs in the amount of 1 month's rent. And in this case, it would be around $3,000. Or the owner can waive the final month's rent in writing as another option. But the dollar amount is only part of the picture because of the tenant's age and all the things that are going on at this property. They're going to do the thing that they need to do, which is seek counsel. There's a lot of free tenant resources out there and tenant advocacy groups that are going to give this person some advice should someone want to go down this path. And they should totally get that advice. I totally agree with it. Know what your rights are, and which is going to make the idea of house hacking on this building pretty challenging, because now you're dealing with, and expensive, because now you're dealing with the idea of paying them to relocate and displace. Now you're going to have to get your own attorneys. You're going to have to file a bunch of paperwork. There's going to be some negotiation. And if you don't do it correctly, you could be subjected to what do they call it? A wrongful eviction claim, right? You don't want that. Or you could, something that's showing that you're destroying the quiet enjoyment of the property. You could be doing something that's completely illegal if you don't file it correctly, or if you file it and you miss a step, you'd have to start the process all over again. And if you are going to do an owner move-in, you have to show that you are the owner that's moving in or related to the owner. If you bought this for your child or a relative to move into, and you have to live there for 12 consecutive months, and you have to move in within 90 days. That's what you have to do. And that's kind of like that's the scenario. And I guess that's not very hard to do, but it's going to cost you some money. So it's not as easy as just saying, hey, I want to move this property. Here's some notice. You got to move out. I'm moving in. No, you're going to have to go through some motions here, and it can get complicated and it will get expensive. And here's the thing. It's not the same everywhere, because in San Rafael, there's other zones. Like, this is one zone of San Rafael, but there's a whole nother zone that's going to require more than just paying 1 month's rent for the tenant to move out. You're going to have to pay for the tenant to move out. There's also considerations around family size, where they're moving to, how much is it going to cost to relocate. Maybe you have to pay for additional time for them to move in. Higher relocation expenses will occur. And again, attorney's fees. So it's that number from $3,000 can definitely escalate depending on where you are, or the first 1 month's rent can definitely escalate from depending on where you are. And here's another case in point. I had a client reach out to me who had a relative who was getting an owner eviction out of a property that they've been living in Berkeley. And Berkeley has completely different rules than Marin County, even though we're only maybe 20 miles away. But they were they basically, because of this person's age, and they were older than 60, and the area that they're living in, Berkeley, that they have to pay a higher amount for them to move out of the property. It's not just 1 month's rent. I don't know what that amount is, but it's much more than if they were below a certain age. And they have to give the tenant 12 months notice to vacate. Not 1 month, not 60 days, not 90 days, 12 full months. So this owner who wants to take over this unit has to pay a considerable amount of money and wait almost a year before they're able to get that property back. And how much can change in a year? I mean, a lot, in my opinion. A lot can change in a year. So it's just something to be aware of if you're going to go down this path of house hacking, because it can cost you some serious dough. And here's the thing that you need to understand as a buyer is those costs cannot be negotiated into your purchase. Like, buyers need to know, regardless of your motivation of whatever you're going to be doing with this unit, the seller is not going to displace a tenant on your behalf. This is something you're going to have to do. They're going to sell the property as is with tenants in place. And once you own it, you can do whatever you want with it. You can file your own owner eviction. You can get an attorney. You can do it on your own based on Google. Don't recommend that. You can go through all the channels yourself and deal with all the relocation payments, all the notices. And I'll be direct. Like, I would never tell an owner a seller to displace a tenant so that a buyer can buy the property with one unit available. Would never, ever do that in a million years. Why? The risk is too high. I mean, if someone's willing to do that, either they're not savvy or they're super desperate just to get out of this building. And that's also a red flag, because what happens if something goes wrong in escrow? Like, maybe the buyer backs out and now you've got a displaced tenant and you can't fulfill the obligations that are set forth by California, mean that you don't have an owner moving into that property. You're not pulling it off the rental market for 12 months. You have a vacancy, and the legal exposure is just going to get high. So if you're a house hacker and you're looking for duplexes or multifamily to move into, here's the practical breakdown on something that's vacant. So buying something vacant, which, by the way, is basically like what I would recommend if you're going to go down this path. But if you're buying a unit, a building with a vacant unit, or a building with a tenant that's leaving on their own, you're skipping all of the headaches. There's no relocation process, people. There's no legal process. There's no risk of being fair housing compliant and living in a property for 12 months before you re-rent it, or having to be in there in 90 days. There's none of that stuff. It's just a completely different game. And also, like, you can pick the unit based on your lifestyle, right? You can pick a unit based on what it's going to cost you to live there. If you want the unit that's going to be the cheapest unit of the ones in the building, you can live in that one and rent the other ones out for more money to help really offset your costs. Or if you need a bigger space, you can pick the bigger unit, move in there and use the other units to offset your costs. But you have a lot more room to wiggle. The only downside, in my opinion, is you really don't have like real numbers to work off, like a whole database of numbers, a historical database of numbers. That's what I wanted to say, of numbers to work off of. Like, you don't know what the rent roll is going to be because you're going into it new. You don't know how much money is going to be coming to you to really offset your costs. And real estate agents, especially selling agents, are going to tell you one thing. They're going to tell you best case scenario so that they paint the picture and sell the dream of this building, what it can actually produce. But market conditions can shift. Your timing can shift. If you move into the property, you buy the property maybe at a more depressed time of the year, it could take you longer to rent the other units out. So like, you need to factor all of this in and do your homework. I would talk to property managers. I would talk to people who are actually actively renting properties in that market. Look at data so you understand what the cost is. Make your offers and make your purchase decisions and your buying decisions based on that data and not specifically what is advertised in the listing. Now, if you flip the script a little bit and you're just saying, okay, well, you know what? I get it. Buying vacant buildings better, but what's the upside of buying something that's occupied and doing the eviction process, if that's the way, the owner eviction process, if that's the direction we want to go? Well, in the case of this duplex in San Rafael, the big upside is that we have all the maintenance records. We know exactly how much this building's cost. We know what rent's coming in. We have that. We've got leases that are in place. We know the dollar amount. So you can make decisions about your finances based on the number that's available because it's real. It's happening right now. And you know how you can make projections over the next 12 and 24 months based on maintenance records, the leases, and the actual rents that are coming in, and the annual rent increases that you will be allowed to do under AB 1482. Because you can still raise rents, you just are capped at how much you can raise them. So here's the bigger picture. If you're house hacking or consider house hacking, I want you to think of it as a short-term play and a long-term strategy. This is likely not going to be your forever home. If you're serious about being an investor, you're going to buy this property, you're going to live in it for a specific period of time, and then either refinance it, sell it, or leverage it to buy something bigger or convert it to an income producing part of your portfolio, your real estate portfolio. Say that fast 15 times. And you're going to grow from there. Either way, whatever you decide to do, be savvy about it. Understand the market that you're buying into, especially right now when the market's kind of shifty. People don't want to move a lot in Marin County. We're just not seeing a whole lot of movement. And we're talking 2026. So depending on when you watch this video, but that's what's happening right now. And if you're dealing with tenants, if you're thinking about doing an owner eviction, you need to know, are these tenants part of a protected class? Do they have disabilities? Are they on vouchers? Are any of the number of factors that can complicate your deal, and even a displacement? Because people can push back. And when they do, they'll get attorneys. And one procedural mistake in an eviction process will cause you to have to start this whole thing all over. So bottom line is that house hacking is an amazing opportunity, but if the property that you're looking at has an occupied unit and you're planning to displace a tenant, make sure it's worth it. Make sure this is the location. Make sure that the numbers are worked out and the timeline is going to justify you going through this process, because there are plenty of other properties out there, especially if you're thinking about it as a short-term play and a long-term strategy. You don't have to buy the one specific type of property. So be smart, be patient, and always get proper legal advice. Don't depend on my information to make your decisions. Get proper legal advice. Contact a real estate attorney who knows your market, who is in your state. Because if you don't do that, you can be putting yourself for huge upset and huge expenses. That's it today. Again, my name is Christopher Barrow. I am the broker and founder of Foundation Homes Property Management, the host of this podcast, the Landlord Code, and a partner at Gold Street Properties up in Sonoma, California. And look, we specialize in property management, and we love helping investors buy properties, protect their sales, protect their assets, stay compliant, and actually run their rentals like a business. So if you're looking at a deal, or you're not sure what you're walking into, or you have an investment property and you want a team that really gets the direction you're going to, go to foundationhomes.com, go to goldstreetproperties.com. Also follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. And for more information like this and for more scenarios, real numbers, and the actual property management perspective that most people never hear, check us out. My name is Christopher Barrow, and I'll see you next week. I'm out.